With the media under scrutiny for the last 3.5 years, hearing about fake news is something that we hear about every day. Uh, it's the news usually being accused of being the fake news. We have an amazing journalist here today to kind of describe what it's like being in a newsroom the last 3.5 years and talk about some of the outrageous stories she has covering the news. Find out more coming up next. I'm Eric Mitchell, and this is To the Point. The world of media and news and how we ingest it and what we see and how it's given to us is amazing. It's been crazy in 2020. So I wanted to give you guys something amazing and not just amazing, but an interesting insight or look behind the curtains and what it's like to be a journalist in 2020. From COVID-19 to race relations to immigration to election 2020. What is it like trying to find a good story that's different than all the breaking stories going on? To give us that information today, we have an amazing guest. Viktoria Capek will be joining us, and we're going to talk about what it's like to be in the newsroom. So get your seatbelts on and get ready for a good one. We're going to learn what's going on in the media today, or as our president likes to call it, fake news. So let's get to the point with Viktoria Capek.
Life Flip Media, the voice of the warrior class. Are you a veteran or patriotic business owner, author, musician, public speaker, or entrepreneur? Are you ready to take the next step towards success? Then look no further than Life Flip Media, the voice of the warrior class. Life Flip Media is the #1 veteran-owned PR firm in America. We use our mission-oriented approach to secure advertising and media exposure for your business, your brand, and your products. It's time to let Life Flip Media put you on the cutting edge of success. Life Flip Media, the voice of the warrior class.
Hey, welcome to the show, Victoria. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
It's 2020. I think that's my answer since March. It's 2020, and we're all kind of getting by every day. Is that a good
Yes,
answer?
the day by day motto, right? That's what I've kind of adopted in the last month since it's been dragging on so much, right?
Oh, yeah. See, you and I both work on in the media, but both on kind of different sides. Where
Mhm.
you're a journalist and you're on all the time, and I do, of course, commentary around calling into wonderful stations like your own and talking about sports. But journalism and media in general has been attacked not just in 2020, but the last 3.5 years. I've never heard journalists attacked so much. Now, I'm a member of the National Press Club, so it's discussed quite often on how journalists are being treated and how, for a country that has freedom of the press, which is a beautiful thing, and amazing journalists that we grew up on. I mean, growing up on Dan Rather, Peter Jennings, the great Tom Brokaw, just kind of that whole amazing Katie Couric, everybody who's kind of the journalist in your mind. Now everybody's bad according to the last. On any given Sunday, you could be a bad journalist by just reporting the truth. What's it like being on the other side of this as a journalist, where every story you have could be judged by anyone?
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because I'm a younger journalist, right? Like I've only been in this profession really about 2-3 years now, and so first of all, coming into an industry where you know all of the weapons are pointed at you. First off, coming straight out of college and being like, okay, yeah, no one likes me. Thanks, I already felt that way anyway, and this just kind of makes it that much harder. It's it puts you in an interesting point. I'll use the protests that have happened recently, right? We had from both ends of things, journalists getting attacked. We had one of my coworkers at KATV in Little Rock, which is where I work. They ended up getting tear gassed, but that same coworker was also hit by some of the people who were rioting more so than protesting, right? So it's like you're getting it from both ends of things. You have people who are saying that we are, so biased that they can't necessarily trust us. And because of that, we're just entertainers. We're not actually giving real information, which to some extent, you've heard of infotainment, right? Like that's what news is. To some extent, we are on TV. We are supposed to at least engage viewers in that kind of way. So we're going to have senses of entertainment and I don't want to say fabrication, but we want to do things that bring in people. And sometimes people are seeing that as dishonest and they're portraying us as this dishonest media sort of thing. But then on the other side of things, the more so common folks, I want to say like the younger generation, see us as working for the man, which is what I feel like a lot of people are going against. I've been seeing a lot of stuff like, the media is working for the government. And it's been kind of hard to explain to the younger folks, like, actually, we're the ones that are working. We're not working alongside them necessarily. We're the ones that we're here because of them, right? Like we're keeping them in check and stuff like that. And so it's just been really interesting because we're not high enough in a place to where we're treated as equal by the people who think they're, way up there and above everyone else, but we're seen as a position of power at the same time. So people think that we're belittling them. So I don't know if some of that makes sense. We're really, it's the classic case of we're the messenger. So people are trying to shoot the messenger, so to speak. So that's been really hard to convey to the younger generation, which is a weird thing for me to say since I am the younger generation,
Yeah. That is the ironic part, right? Is you look at your age. My daughter, she's going to be 16 next month, and she was already she wants to pursue journalism. That is her goal in life. That's a separate conversation I'll have with you. But she's found some amazing mentors here. We live in the Pacific Northwest. It is. I do want to talk about journalists being attacked. Living in Portland, Oregon, which I'm sure you're aware, we're still having protests every night, and they're pretty ugly. And the fact that things are still being vandalized every night, there's a number of arrests. But interesting things keep being said, which triggers me when I'm like, not triggers like I'm offended, but like I'm reading it on Twitter. This morning, 5:29 a.m., the police department ordered all protesters and included a sentence which caught me off guard, and journalists must leave the area. You are not allowed to be here. And I'm like, but if they have press passes and their First Amendment right gives them you're supposed to cover the news. What I laughed was all four of our major networks here all tweeted that they were on their way to the scene. And I'm like, so how is that go as a journalist when you're sitting there? You're prep. We saw the reporter in Minneapolis during the George Floyd get arrested for being black, basically, was the only thing I could find. I was like, there's three white news crews next to him. You go with, that's the guy you're going for in Minnesota? You guys seem to be under attack on both sides. But with law enforcement, I don't understand it because you guys are credentialed up. If I saw a report, and there's a big difference between an independent journalist and you standing there. You guys rock your gear. Like you guys are branded better than anybody else on the planet. You're rocking.
I can grab right here. Like we have our polos. Like we literally carry around our badge with us. Like this is, we are credentialed up. You're exactly right about that. And my comment to that sort of, Eric, is just kind of, I think especially, referring back to these protests, they're just such high stress situations sometimes. And obviously I can't speak on behalf of either side. I can only speak on behalf of, someone possibly getting detained. I mean, that happened to two of my coworkers as well. They were actually detained. 10 minutes later, they ended up being released because they were just like, hey, why is this happening to us? But, I think it's just such a high stress situation that it gets to the point where it's kind of like, no one's even, they're almost just trying to overlook the middleman. It's just, it is a confusing thing. But you're right about that. I think we're at just such a transitional period right now that those basic things like freedom of.
So let's talk about something that's not news, like COVID-19, right? Civil rights, anything really touchy. Let's talk about things that go on that are normal stories that you would cover here in 2020 or any year. You recently did an amazing segment or a series of segments on opioid addiction or just opioid abuse, I guess, in Little Rock or in the Arkansas area. But I know that is a national topic, but it's obviously probably it's a two-part question for you. One part, it's difficult because it's an important topic, but two, it's probably scary to produce something like that and have it get lost in translation with whatever could happen nationally. Obviously, Little Rock, right there is the capital of Arkansas, so you guys are very busy. You have all those news stories, much like the big news desks do, and then national news jumps over that. I mean, it's such an important story. What was it like going through and covering that and going, oh crap, is the story even going to get the media it deserves? Because it's important, right? More people are probably going to die from opioids than they would from going and protesting. I'm just saying there's a big
Right.
difference.
No. I see what you're crossing over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely interesting, right? So I'm from Georgia, and then I was in Minnesota before this. And of course, like you just mentioned, the opioid epidemic is something that is happening all over the country. So I distinctly recall in Georgia covering that story. In Minnesota, we covered things like it. And then to come here in Little Rock, I'm still fairly new here. I've only been here 6 months. And to cover something as major as that and learning the things I did is, it's crazy and related to COVID-19, but not related. It was a very sobering reminder, sobering used in the pun kind of way, but not in the pun kind of way. You know what I mean there? In the fact that even though COVID-19 is happening and there are really, really big things happening in the world that are the newest, craziest things, there are other things that are still silently affecting people, such as the opioid epidemic, right? Like they're calling it the silent killer. That is still something that's happening so largely, and it's happening more so. Whereas I think the country was on, from my research, a downward trend with this pandemic. From 2018 to 2019, at least in Arkansas, we found that there was a major decrease in opioid use and overdoses, specifically the use of naloxone and Narcan, which is what helps reverse an overdose by those first responders. They had reduced using it. But back in 2020, again, being the absolutely most difficult year that a lot of people have faced in a really long time, it started seeing another upward trend. And, one of the craziest factor I saw too, the statistic that really, really startled me was when I did this story, I think it was back in April or early May, March and April of 2019, this state only saw 2 attempted suicides with overdose that were stopped by the use of Narcan. And that was 2019. In 2020, first responders stopped 8 attempted suicides with Narcan because of people trying to overdose. So that's 4 times the amount. And, just hearing numbers like that and talking to our drug director here in this state about that is just a reminder that even though it might not be in the spotlight right now, it is still a startling thing that is happening to people in our country. A silent one, but startling.
And that's interesting you bring that up because we've been watching the Golden State Killer. It's a great on HBO right now, and it was created by Michelle McNamara, who was Patton Oswalt's wife, and unfortunately she passed. And what is not well documented, because we didn't have any idea until we, of course, like everyone else who watches TV and picks up their phone in the last 4 months, you Google whatever you're watching to be like, let me see what the story is. And she actually OD'd on opioids because she had several. It was an accidental overdose. So here's somebody who was at all married to Patton Oswalt, a very talented actor, has a great family. Obviously, had this documentary, had a successful book that has turned into a great documentary again on HBO, and she dies of an overdose. So I think it's still a big issue, but there's so much stacked on top of it in 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy how things are still buried in the news feed, just period. I mean, I thought the funniest thing that we had in the news was in January, we were talking about meth gators. Your friends there in Tennessee were like, don't put your meth down the sewer. The Gators will get it. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
yeah, mutant gators. That's the last thing we need right now, right?
We don't need them. The killer hornets, we're cool. We've got enough of a dumpster fire cruising around the country that we don't need to add anything else. I was hoping when we
Yeah.
got to July it would chill out, but obviously July's like didn't get the memo, and
Hey, we're only halfway through. We still have time. Don't worry. Cross your fingers, right?
we're trying. But then we have election 2020, which floats you into a whole new. You're like, yeah, election 2020.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
It's that elephant in the room where it's just so controversial, so much that's being said. So let me ask you: you've been in journalism, so you've been in journalism 2 to 3 years, correct? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So pursuing journalism as someone who is in media, I have a daughter who loves journalism. When you look at what you're seeing today on the news, just reporting anywhere globally, or the AP, which let's just pick on the AP. I love them. It's where we all get our news from anyways because they're biased. They're good. And every news desk shares their stories. Sorry, that's a small trick to everybody who sends press releases out. The AP does a better job than you. Just saying, their stories are better. But, the AP...
Said it, not me.
Yeah, I said it. That's why it's my show. I could get away with saying it. Journalists, keep sending the press releases to them. They love them. I'll say that. I'm nodding as I say that for you, too, because I'm smirking, because I don't do that. Emails,
Yeah.
yes, I do. Yeah, press releases, I have a whole nother thing. But anyways, the AP, so we're talking about so much going on in the world. Have you ever seen or thought you would work during such a crazy, chaotic time where if you look the last 3.5 years, so you jumped into journalism as a certain someone got into office. So that's one interesting fact. Two, the news seems to be everywhere. I've never seen us go from, it's a straight up roller coaster where I don't remember that during the last 8 years with the president before. I definitely don't. I mean, Bush obviously had 9/11, which that struck our entire country. And before that, you, of course, had from your great state, President Clinton, served 2 terms, great president, obviously has good and bad in his record, and everybody loves to focus on the bad of the man. But, he did serve 2 terms, so you can't knock somebody who was in for 8 years. Don't want to pick from anybody from Georgia, but he only did 4. So we come on. I got to get a Jimmy Carter crack in there.
It's fair enough. He has his road. People like him, but I totally get you there.
Yeah.
No worries.
Hey, but you got to love Jimmy because he's like he's the president that won't quit. I mean, what is he, like almost 100? He's falling off roofs and like.
He is quite literally everyone's grandfather, right?
Yes.
Like he's that guy right there. Yes.
Yeah. Like if you read about it, like it's funny, and I know this is completely off topic, but you brought up you're from Georgia. I brought up Carter. The one thing about him is like I remember reading in history books and hearing how both Democrats and Republicans have talked about him as like this president, right? Like oh, Jimmy Carter, right? You kind of always hear that. But now you see him in the news, like I remember like at least the last 2 decades. Like you kind of look at him like, and he is like everybody's grandpa. He's like, I love that guy. He's out there building homes. He's the oldest dude moving super slow. And he's like carrying a 2x4. And he's like, I'm building this one at a time. And I'm like,
but he's doing it. Yes, setting an example for the younger folks, for sure, for sure.
He's that guy. But I mean, I'll go back to my question now. So sorry, I'm all over the squirrel brain. That's why this is a Friday episode and not a Monday episode. And I'm talking to a journalist who works on the morning side that's been up for hours before she talked to me. So this is going to be great. That's what makes this fun. But no, so again, getting into journalism, starting with this president, which this is uncharted territory for all of us. I don't remember a time news is so chaotic based off of one person's terms that literally throws a newsroom upside down, not just at the national level, but even for you guys at the regional level. How do you maintain this it's not even a daily basis, it's hourly? How do you as a journo kind of go, do you follow Twitter pretty heavily? How does it work where you go, oh my God, this is actually happening? Because it just seems like every day something's happening, like every few hours. Especially this week alone with the Supreme Court twice, like saying, hey, we're killing people. And like those dudes they get a stay of execution and literally like 2 a.m. They're like, it's lifted, you can go ahead. And they're not playing around.
It happens to be the guy that killed the Arkansas family as well, right? No, to answer your question too, and like you said, this weekend, every week prior in 2020 really has been that kind of like, I can't believe we're doing this. But I mean, we're doing it because we don't really have another choice. And I think very similar to every other non-journo in the world, you know, we're people first, and our immediate response is like, oh, okay, that's happening. Take your big gulp, right? Maybe have a little like scream inside for just like a second, that eternal scream, let it loose a little bit, and then it's kind of like, all right, get it together because this is what we have to do. Buckle up, buddy, because we're down for a ride, right? Like that's what we're doing there. And you know, I have had I'm pretty close with my news director, right? He's awesome, a great mentor, love speaking with him. And one of the things that we talked about really early, specifically like with the COVID stuff, was, you know, we talked about how being in news at this time, right, there are ebbs and flows of like news cycles. And sometimes you have really good ones with really interesting things. Sometimes they're just kind of like, all right, let's do that evergreen story where we talk about, you know, making sure you don't leave your pets in the car every summer, right? Like the thing that is important to get out, but it's not exactly newsworthy because it happens all the time, unfortunately. I'm not perpetuating that in any ways. But this is one of those cycles that is going to be monumental, right? If you think about it in that sense, I actually just bought a mask that says journalism is the first rough draft of history, right? So I wanted to rep that. That's pretty cool, right?
Like
with the
that.
times. But it's very true. And if you're thinking about it in that sense of being like, okay, yes, this is massive. Yes, this is absolutely bonkers. Never thought this would be happening. But we are the people out here making that first rough draft of history.
Yeah.
And for me, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, man, does that get me pumped. Man, does that make me say, you know, I do want to focus on those really important things. I want to jump into this craziness that is happening and not just do the same story that every other reporter is doing in the world, every other journalist is doing in the world, but find something like a deep dive into the opioid epidemic, or something just a little bit heavier that will really carry some weight during this crazy time. When the protests were happening, me wanting to jump out there and say, okay, I don't work today, but I will literally stay up for 24 hours straight because I want to be a part of documenting this history. So for the people who are in this industry right now, absolutely, yes, it's crazy. But I think, you know, I think journalists too, sometimes they can definitely be thrill seekers. I know I am. I'm very high key and adrenaline junkie. So the fact that we have those opportunities to really jump into this fire is exciting. I think we welcome it. We don't want bad things to happen. That's not what we want. But to have exciting things happen and to have people that are passionate about getting them down on paper, that's what we need. And that's kind of how I'm facing it. Now, our newsrooms are absolutely nuts right now. Like that's no lie. Like, you know, I think it's maybe a blessing that we have been kind of working from home and that we're not just all running around with like chickens with our heads cut off through the newsroom and through the studio, right? We're only doing that one by one, so we can't see each other panicking, which is good. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the human part of us. But then the part of us that's just kind of like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this for people who can't do it. That's the part that's making us excited, you know?
I love that you said that, because that's, we're witnessing, I've called it, I know a revolution is probably not the right word, but I watched Hamilton recently, so that's where my brain goes.
Yes.
Right. I mean, and now I have the King song stuck in my head permanently, where I wake up in the middle of the night going, why am I singing this song? It's ridiculous. Amazing. If you haven't seen Hamilton, go watch it. But we're not talking about that. But you're right. It is watching history. My wife doesn't understand why I enjoy watching as much streaming of when the protests were going on hot and heavy. I was on my phone literally all night. I had a scanner in one ear, like, because I come from a law enforcement background, so I have a professional scanner, and I put it in my ear, and I'm listening to the cities that are going through the crisis, because I'm amazed on the response. Like, LA was like crazy. I mean, just when it flared, it was huge. Obviously, in Portland, it's still going on. They didn't get the memo you're supposed to stop after a while, because, and they've been attacking like the same building. Like, I'm like, okay, seriously, guys, you got to find a new I mean, they burned an elk down here. I'm like, I get some of the other things that you've burned, but an elk? Like, what did an elk do to you? An elk can't even be racist. It's an elk. But anyways, that's my, I know, it's a famous elk. Like, if you've ever look at Oregon, that's what we're known for, is this, like, famous elk. And they burned an elk. I was like, guys, really? But, you're right. Rewriting history, it's amazing. I think our children are seeing it too. I think this generation that hasn't been in school in months, which we're going to get to that question because I'm sure that's a hot topic as we're coming into late July here. But you guys but I think that's why it goes to that original question when I started about you guys being attacked by both sides, the protesters or the looters, not even the protesters. I don't want anybody thinking that Black Lives Matter isn't doing something incredible. I look at the arrest reports here in Portland, Oregon, and I can tell you the people being arrested, yeah, none of them, nobody fits that minority side of the house. Let's just leave it that the people arrested, there's been 156 people arrested over the last, however many weeks they've been doing this, 7 weeks. Yeah, it's embarrassing how these folks have nothing to do with what they're just there to cause issues, and they throw rocks at you guys, which irritates me because, you guys are right. You guys are brave because you're between the protesters and the riot line. And I'm like, that's the place you don't want to be ever. And you guys are just like, hey, we're here. We got this big, heavy camera. And hi, I'm here. And I'm going to.
I can tell you for the one protest that I did cover that got a little out of hand as the sun went down. It was kind of funny because me and my photographer kind of had this shared, one time he would be running into something dangerous and I would be like, come on, man, we gotta go. And then there would be times where I'm just with my phone, wanting to shoot something for Twitter. And I'm like, just let me stand here for 2 seconds longer. And he's behind me yelling, Victoria, get your butt over here right now. And I'm like, you're going to have to drag me away, man. And we just had this shared back and forth of obviously protecting each other, looking out for each other. But yeah, we're the ones that are wanting to be up there on the front lines. And I just don't think you're cut out for being in this job if you can't do that right now, if you're not willing to kind of jump in and, be a part of making history.
That's true. I think that's why I really was looking forward to interviewing you today, because to hear, number one, your age makes it unique because a lot of people have experienced different things in journalism, but you're seeing it from fresh eyes under what has been a very inflammatory president. Just period on social. You just talked about Twitter, and you're on social. You're a TikToker. Let's talk about TikTok, because that also it's a huge story buried in the news. I mean, we've kind of had this last 2 weeks. I feel like we've covered this roller coaster of okay, right. We have COVID-19, okay, and then you have, of course, a big anchor on a big network show with high ratings who now is on vacation. He's been controversial the last few weeks, and then you have TikTok, right? TikTok, which is killing it with the teenagers. My kids love it. I took it off my phone because it became a time suck, not because I don't support it. It just became
yes.
What did you do today? I spent 4.5 hours on TikTok. It's entertainment. We kept it on one of our two phones. My wife kept it on her phone. And at night, we spend a couple hours watching. It is entertaining. I'm a huge Bruce Willis fan and Wayne Brady and just so many people on there. But you have quite the following on TikTok. And I see a lot of people using it. And, number one, what do you think about them trying to say the government trying to take away TikTok from folks, which is weird because that would make us a lot like other governments we report on that do this to their people. And I don't understand it. Now we're going to say TikTok spies on us. And I'm like, hello, Facebook, or hello, any of us going shopping and say a magic word and that ad is showing up in our phone.
Showing up. I mean, I'll respond to that right quick. And my immediate response to it is, gosh darn it, I literally just got into it. Please don't take it away from me now. That would make me very sad.
Yeah.
Second thought on that being, if you've ever had an email, if you've ever had a phone, they have you. They already have you. Why are we getting upset at TikTok? Let the Gen Zers have their fun little thing that is a time suck. Because you're so right about that. I can't even watch TV anymore because my attention span, I feel like, is just wrecked from TikTok, right? Because you have 60-second videos is the longest thing you can have on there. And so I'm like, if it's longer than 60 seconds, I don't know if I can watch it. I did watch Hamilton, though. But again, we're not talking about that. But everyone should watch Hamilton.
If they put it on TikTok, that'd be great, but it wouldn't be long enough. But you're right. Our attention span has shortened, but it's true. But it's good to see you share your stories on there. It's good that you're another one of these amazing journalists that's out there and using social media to share the story. Because so many of us can't watch you say, live from your newsroom. But what if you have a breaking story and we want to be able to see it? Because news happens all over and happens all the time. And that's why
Yeah.
I love Twitter. My friends are like, how do you go on there? Do you just stalk the president? I'm like, look, he's actually blocked out of my keywords because I actually just follow news. I love following what's going on because you across the country, what you guys talk about is amazing to me because it speaks volumes. You covering opioids is a huge thing that's not just an Arkansas thing, it's in everywhere in America. Actually a global thing. The addiction to opioids is scary. I mean,
Hmm.
and then we kind of subject hop again. That's what I do on this show. We jump all around. But I mean, you also have, there's so many topics that we've been talking about. I mean, for years, we've talked about opioids. And of course, veteran suicide is a big topic because it's over 22 a day. Again, always seems to be backburnered or hidden on some bill. And I'll go, and I know you come from a Marine Corps family, so I feel like I'm talking to family, as you know how the Marines are. So,
Yes.
just going through it and talking about so many topics, how do you get to the good stuff, the stuff that's fun, that actually makes you go, this is why I do it? Not just the emotionally draining. I mean, it's got to be horrible covering homicides and bad things. But what about the good? Like, how do you wake up and you're like, today I'm going to find something good and I'm going to go cover it and I'm going to make it sexy enough. And I use sexy in a news format, not like, oh, it's
That's
pretty.
a good thing.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? I just had to clarify that because I get keyboard commandos that correct me all the time on this show. Like, Eric, you didn't say this correctly. I'm like, you know what? I'm not Sean Hannity, so deal with it. Sean can say what he wants. I can say what I want. Everybody can say whatever they want. No, but I mean, how do you find a positive story that's sexy enough that everybody's like, hey, I want to hear that story? Those feel good pieces that we all kind of watch the news for, that half hour. We're like, finally, it's not a
Yeah,
homicide.
for sure. At its core, right, journalism is storytelling. And to people who are in this industry, I know that sounds like such a cliche, but at least to me, like, that's what's beautiful about it, right? My background is in theater. I grew up a performer. I grew up in the theater and the arts, and they're the same thing to me, right? It's storytelling. And so stories aren't just, when you're just doing the breaking news, or when you're just doing the homicide or the update from the governor on COVID-19, that's not, I mean, it's important, and that is a part of our job, is getting that out there, but that's not the storytelling aspect of things. And it has been a little slim these last few months because we have had a lot of those really like critical things we've needed to get out there. But for me, the best part about it was getting to meet the people, right? My example was always, the coolest part of my job is I get to meet the CEO who was homeless growing up and built himself out of nothing, but I also get to meet the farmer who's totally content, literally rolling bales of hay all day. And I get to share their stories, right? I get to share the thing that they're passionate about and learn what they're passionate about. And I mean, I guess that's the part, is just kind of looking at everyday people and seeing what makes them, looking at ordinary people, but seeing what makes them extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
That's the part for me that's more positive, and kind of just looking at those individual stories, which again, it has been harder just because we've had so many necessary things we've had to do. But think about all the stories we did, when stuff first came out with COVID, all the people that were coming together and making masks, that's still happening. People who are doing fundraisers to give money to hospitals to buy personal protection equipment and stuff like that. Those are the stories we have to look for and see how these individuals are taking the things that they're passionate about, how the person who's so passionate about, they always used to sew things and crochet family. Well, now they're sewing together for people in the nursing homes. Like, you want to look for those things people are personally passionate about and find the stories within the person, not necessarily with what's going on. I don't know if my
Yeah.
brain made sense there.
No, it
Sense
did.
to me, at least.
Yeah. It makes lots of sense because it's something that I always wonder, right? Because you see those, I think before COVID-19, and this is no knock on anybody in a newsroom, but you used to see those feel good pieces and be like, ugh, like, why do I have to do that? And now you're like, oh, please, I want to see a squirrel on jet skis. Dang it. I need to see it because that makes me feel better. Like,
I mean, I read a story the other day about a lawnmower race across America. I don't know why that was fantastic, but it was so fantastic. And you're so right. It's like we want to see those right now. And we know that people want to see them as well. Trust me, we want to give them to you. We don't want to bring you terrible news. Again, we're just the messenger, right?
Yeah.
We're humans too. We're just doing our jobs, you know?
I think that's the thing a lot of people don't understand about your guys' job. And again, why I wanted you on the show is people are given such one-sided info because they always look, and I hate to say it, doesn't mean that you're not a good journal, but they always talk about the gigantic folks, right? The leaders of the pack are always the ones that are talked about, whether it's Ainsley on Fox and Friends, who's awesome. But I mean, they're always talking about the big names, Don Lemon, Jake Tapper, all the names, Hannity, Tucker, all of them, Laura, everybody's name's mentioned. Yeah, of course. Those folks are huge at national networks, but what about your local hometown? They're reporting real news. You guys are humans. You're not rolling in the Hannity money. Let's just put it that way. I mean, I don't know why everybody seems to think when it comes to journalism, they always focus on those. And that's what I hear. Oh, Hannity or Cuomo. Or I'm like, okay, but how does that affect you directly? You listen to them. They also have radio shows. They're pretty big. I'm like, but I like our anchors here who show their daytime Emmys off for reporting a story I remember watching. It was about like a rescue in the mountain. Well, actually, one of our journalists here got it because she wore high-waisted pants, and some people attacked her. True story. Attacked her for her attire on air. They're like, we don't like your style. I'm like, who goes after? Like,
I
I
mean,
tweeted.
that's a whole rabbit hole I could go down if we wanted to even get back into the whole TikTok thing, is the whole style aspect of things, right? But
I mean, do you see
again,
that as a
rabbit
journalist? I mean, okay, so let's talk about it. You have another a thing that makes you unique. I think that I don't know a lot of journalists that come out and say this stuff, but you have come out. You represent the LGBTQ plus community. I ride on Peloton, and Cody Rigsby made sure that you could say it. He says plus all the time, so I stole that. As somebody
Yes.
who is a huge advocate for that community, I make sure I say it the right way. So no offense to anybody if I don't always say plus. I'm working on it. I blame Cody if it's wrong. See Cody Rigsby over at Peloton because he said you could say plus. That includes everybody. So rock on. But you're very public about it. You're outspoken about it. Do you see the people who know, and these people on Twitter? I know trolls are. They show up for all of us, and probably on TikTok. I don't know. Does TikTok have trolls real fast?
Oh, TikTok has trolls.
Okay.
Trust me, we have them out there. The same people who were trolling on the other sites, for some reason, they wanted to get on TikTok and ruin our fun on there too. But anyways.
I think every app has trolls. I've heard Parler has trolls too, and that's where everybody ran off to, or they said they went to. They all said they were leaving Twitter, but strangely they're still tweeting. I'm like, if you're leaving, you're supposed to leave. People are confused. But no, I mean, so how is that? Like, already being a journo where I'm sure you could report something if people not agree with you, and then you come out and people are like, oh, you're giving this viewpoint, and you're in the South, which is also another interesting. I mean, it's just when I read that about you, I was like, oh, I'm asking this question because you're in the South. You're a young, I mean, and you're a military brat, which is all things from a great branch. I mean, and I don't know why people think when people say that about even like one of my children, my older daughter, like, I'm like, Marines, we don't care. I'm like, do you think we're like, so, yeah, we're a macho organization, but we're all dads and moms. I mean, those of us serve. So I'm like,
I was gonna say,
we love our
Dad,
kids.
yeah, he's a tough guy, but he's also just kind of like, hey, little miss, and then just gives me a giant hug. And I'm like, oh, Dad, you're the squishiest guy. I love you.
Yeah, if you come after our
you're
kids,
so right
it's a whole
about
different story. You're going to see, you want to see the ugly, people think we would do it to our children, but no. You come after one of our kids, that's a whole nother ball of wax that then you see the Marine. You see that side, you're like, hi, how you doing? I'm a Marine, and I'm bringing a lot of my Marine Corps friends with me, and all we have to yell is Marine, and you know how it is. We assemble like the news team on, with Ron Burgundy. We're like, that's how it shows up. We all roll up. So anyways, so how has it been? I mean, do you see yourself attacked a lot? I mean, does that come up? Obviously being in the South, I'm figuring it has to.
Right. I mean, okay, so it's I like to say that, yes, my sexuality is a big part of who I am. And as I've gotten older and gotten into this career just a bit more, I'm finding it more necessary to, let people know. And that's a big part of what I've been doing on TikTok that I think has, really attracted my followers, at least in recent weeks, is that the whole idea of representation matters, right? It really does. For a young person to see someone like them in a, place of profession, a professional place, I can't even speak, you know what I'm trying to say though.
Yeah.
To see that and know like, hey, if that person can be themselves and still be this wonderful professional, then I can do that too one day, right? That matters. And I'm really starting to see that more as I get older and get these messages from people that are, continually coming in saying like, you inspire me so much. I want to come out to my family because of you. Like I feel like I can go be a doctor now because I'm not worried about, X, Y, and Z. But it's interesting though, because it's at the same time, my sexuality doesn't determine anything about my ability to do my job, right? Absolutely nothing. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. And that's one of the things that I've actually talked about with my dad a lot too. And that's what he agrees with, is just kind of like your sexuality, your race, your gender, like that doesn't have anything to do with your ability to do the work. If you have the merit, you have the work, you have the ability, and you're just consistently working on getting better, then that's the thing that should matter. So, of course, in my news stories, it's not like I've been like, and yes, this protest is happening. By the way, I'm a lesbian. Like, that's not what I'm doing in my stories. Like,
Sorry.
because that with the time and place, and that's not the one, right?
Yeah.
But so I guess for the viewers, unless they're tapping into my TikTok and maybe my Instagram a little bit, which are totally public, they'll start seeing that side of me. My professional Facebook and Twitter pages, I do dedicate more to just kind of putting my stories out there, the stuff that I'm working on at work. And it's not something I'm trying to hide. I am, when things get back to normal, going to be taking over our Good Morning Arkansas show, which is a more lifestyle morning show. We can be more ourselves, less boxed up and professional. And if it ever came up about me being in a relationship or looking for a relationship, it's not like I'm going to hide it, right? Because the response I've actually seen from other people in this field coming out is people appreciate, genuine nature, right? And ingenuity more. They appreciate people being real with them. And I think that's such an important thing about this job as well, is the more transparent you are with people and the more genuine you are with your viewers, it's like they're going to trust you more. They can see right through the BS. I mean, that's the thing that we want to avoid. We don't want to look like we're someone you can't trust, because that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. So for me, it's just kind of like, the more genuine I can be, I think the better I'll be at my job. And, on TikTok, the trolls we were talking about, I have gotten a few comments here and there, saying that, of course the media has, a lesbian that's representing them. Like, you're corrupt already, and this is you just pushing your agenda. And it's like, I'm not going to pay heed to them, because the good comments way drown out the bad ones, right? Yep. I had one that said lesbians should be illegal. And I'm like, yeah, if you look this good, maybe you should be illegal. Like, I'm just saying, if you're going to troll, I'm going to troll back. Like, the good ones really, the good ones outweigh the bad. So it's kind of like, I've had a few here and there. As for being in the South, I mean, you have your folks, but by and large, I think times are changing. I think we finally have hit that moment where people are starting to just say, okay, so you're LGBTQ plus, you're also a person. Great. And I think we're finally starting to hit that, but it's still those few people that are, holding folks back. We still have those things that are unfortunately happening to people around the world, when it resorts to violence and, hate crimes and stuff like that. But I think this is a turning point, and that's why I think this representation matters, is to show people you don't have to be afraid. Times are changing, and you have people in your corner rooting for you. So that's kind of why there's the conglomeration of responses to your comments.
I loved all three. I mean, fabulous answers to all of them, because I think it's true. The youth today do need more mentorship and folks to look up to that aren't afraid. I think so much, especially growing up in the 90s and the 80s, a lot of things where people aren't talking and support. And I've interviewed a lot of people, law enforcement, folks that, served in the Marine Corps, went into law enforcement. I mean, we interviewed this amazing black gentleman, Eddie Clark, a Marine and law enforcement veteran, and he said he wishes that he could go back in time to when he was a younger officer and could report what he saw, and he would have probably made it better for officers today and helped with the problems that we're seeing today with policing throughout our country. And by no means am I saying that we need to defund the police. No way. We do need to reform these guys because clearly there's some training issues that you guys are reporting everywhere. We're seeing it everywhere. It's not like it's an undocumented problem. It's very clear. You can see it on TV. I think people need more role models like you and others that are out there, especially getting more women into journalism. They love it. My daughter loves journalism and she follows all sides of it. But I think sexism still is here today. And I'm not by any means defending Hope Hicks, but I just saw that today on Twitter. She was trending, and it's amazing how people just become hateful of somebody because of who they date. And I'm like, I don't know Hope Hicks personally, and she has a job, but to be trashed in the media off of who you date, it's like, come on, you guys are now bashing on somebody. Less than 2 weeks ago, the same person who's trashing her was like, I support finding Vanessa Guillen. And I'm like, yes, totally. We have a problem with sexual assault in the military. It's documented.
Yes.
And now you're trashing Hope Hicks. You're being a sexist. I'm like, we live in such a weird world that we need role models like you that are like, look, this is what I do. And trolls, Scott Stanford, the great Scott Stanford, who, of course, worked for the WWE, is the voice of the WWE, famous, anchor up in New York, said the way he taught me how to deal with trolls, and I've done it ever since, is I ask them and I call them either Karen or Dave. Hey, it's 2020. Everybody gets a Karen name. And I say, Uncle Aaron, did you not take your meds this morning? Whenever they troll me about something dumb. And it just keeps it easy because it's not insulting or anything like that. And they come back and they don't really have an answer. And I try to follow what Guy Kawasaki famously has said, that you respond 3 times to your trolls and you walk away. They'll keep it going. I mean, I still have something going on Instagram and it was about a mask. And I'm like, bro, that conversation ended like yesterday. Like you hijacked this poor journalist's feed who I respect. And I was just asking like, oh, where'd you get your data on your mask? Right? Because even masks are controversial.
To comment on that, Eric, this is what we were talking about earlier, is that someone is always going to have something to say, no matter what. You're never going to make everyone happy. And the thing I've been telling some of the folks who've been reaching out to me, and it's that at the end of the day, you have you, right? And if you are happy with yourself and what you accomplished that day, and you went through your day making other people happy and not hurting anyone or yourself, you did good, man. You're doing what you can do, and let the haters hate, in the wise words of some cliche person out there who said that. Let the haters hate, right?
Oh,
just do you, be confident in who you are. And I think that at the end of the day, you're doing awesome, man, if you're doing that.
I think that's just part of all of our jobs. If you're going to be in the public eye, I think that's something I wasn't prepared for. Obviously, you probably knew you were going to step in front of a camera. I stepped in front of a camera after, putting people in front of a camera for years. I stepped in front of one to help a fellow journo out who was like, come on my show and talk about it. I was like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. And then I went, of course, I read a couple articles and you know the trick. We all read them. And we're like, okay, I'm up to speed. I can talk about this in length. And now I do it all the time. But what I wasn't prepared for wasn't of course, mom high-fiving me like, you're great. But it was the negativity that comes with it, where people, you're right, they don't agree with you. And if they don't, they're like, because you said it on TV. Like recently, I've been covering the Washington Redskins changing their name, which you don't think is a big deal. But when you're speaking on this in the nation's capital, yes, you get some interesting hate mail. And it was funny because they're like, this was 3 weeks ago when I first talked about it. I said the name will change before the 2020 season starts. And the anchor, who's a good friend of mine, I'm not going to name him on here just so he doesn't get hate mail because I know how people are. Great journo. And he's like, oh, that's crazy. You really think it was? And they took this poll, and this poll was 75% of the people in the D.C. area said, no, they won't change the name before the season. Well, I was just back on Monday discussing that I was right, and I called this. I predicted this because I had pretty good sources.
Little did they know.
And boy, did they come after me about, and I started it off by the following thing, because I did this thing called research, which more people should try. And
God,
they said right. They said in 2020 this is the only reason why the name is changing. And I said, au contraire, mon frere. That would be 1972 was the first documented March of 1972. Actually, March 29th, 1972 is the first documented time ever that a very big Native American committee came and sat down with the owners of the Washington Redskins and said, your name is equal to using the N word. Please remove it. It is heavily racist to all Indians, all Native Americans. And it's
research. We
and
love
I'm
it.
like,
That is
I'm
amazing.
like, that's not 2020. That's 1972. This has been an ongoing issue. All my friends who are Native American are like, dude, welcome to our problem. Everybody's like, this isn't the first time we're complaining about this. Like, we're attacking any team that has this kind of name. The Atlanta Braves have dealt with this. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs have done with this. They're not feeling the same thing, but Redskins is a very distasteful thing. And yes, 2020 makes the climate, but hey, just this morning, Dan Snyder, the owner, lawyered up. So we don't know what that means. Obviously, that guy is not the greatest owner in the world, but we're not talking about DC sports, but I could go off on that one because it's a breaking news story. I mean, sports restarting is a big news story for all of us. I don't know how much of you cover it, but I'm
On
like,
the brain.
yeah. I'm like sitting here laughing because I've got guys in the bubble and I'm reading some of the news coming out where guys are snitching on each other. And I know we run out of time, but we didn't talk about masks in school, so we're going to have you back. Real short story here before you go. We just sat on an hour and a half phone call or video call, YouTube live, which was Zoomed, which was pretty cool, for our school district. And they laid out the plan if we could go back to school, what it'll be. I'm scared because no one has the answer. I don't know if in Arkansas they have the answer yet. Here, it's the middle of July. I mean, we're almost to July 20th here, folks. And our school district, like so many others, hasn't made the decision, A, are we going back? Are we even going back? 2, what the plan looks like, because they're like, they're kind of just the shoulder shrug. It's like, we don't have the answer. And then they're like, fall sports. And I'm like, part of me, because I am an athlete, I'm like, what about these kids who are seniors, college scholarships? Like,
Everything these days kind of just feels like that toy in the cereal box. You never know what you're going to get at this point. And I feel like we're definitely all kind of feeling that way regarding sports, regarding school, regarding whatever the heck is going to happen tomorrow, right? Like, it's crazy. I can tell you this, crazy
we'll
times,
probably
for sure.
have the one complaint we'll get on this show today from you and I talking will be somebody say you talked to wearing a mask. I guarantee it. Those are the things that set people off. Because we have those people. I don't know why the anti-maskers, they're everywhere. And I don't know. I can put doctors on after doctor on, and somehow people on Facebook know way more than doctors. I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I apparently didn't need to go to college at all. Neither did you. We could just Google it and go on social and tell everybody we're right and everybody wrong. But anyways, I want to thank you for joining us. I'd love to have you back on. It's so good to get your insight. It's good to have a young, fresh journalist on to kind of give that clear eye as you've come into such a unique time in our day in media where freedom of speech has never meant more to so many. And like I always tell people, and I've been very vocal about it, it's so good to see freedom of speech mean something, not just for freedom of the press, but for folks to understand clearly that so many things get put in people's mouths, and it's good to have people report the truth. And it's been good to see journos on one big fact. I always close with this on my show, is for the last several years, there's been this rumor or thing that veterans in the military are heavily offended by players kneeling. It's disrespecting the flag that we fought for. I have yet, I guess I hang out with different vets, but my veterans who are various academy grads or enlisted don't have a problem for it because we understand what the Constitution says we're allowed to do. So, yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with us. So, folks, journos are doing their job. We're using our constitutional rights. By no means is the military like, oh, my goodness, Colin Kaepernick. No, we're like, bro, do whatever you need to do. We totally get you. We understand what our flag's for. I mean, people can burn that beautiful flag. They could do so many wrong things with it, and people will judge you over no matter what. And you know what I'm talking about. People will wear
We're
the
just
American
out here telling the folks what happened or that it happened.
Amen.
Exactly.
It's
you
so
got it
frustrating.
down So
You just got to tell the story.
Yeah, no, I had a absolute blast today. So thank you. I would love to come back. Just give me a shout. You know where to find me. TikTok is where I will be all the time.
Awesome.
Literally always. So just find me on there.
So what is your TikTok so the folks at home can follow on the talk?
Yes. So it is Viktoria, my first name. So that's Viktoria. And then another A. And then my last name, Capek, Capek. So first name, middle initial, last name.
Perfect.
There.
Awesome. So we'll see you real soon. Enjoy your weekend and get some rest. I know you were up early. And folks, we'll be right back after. Thank you for watching this episode of To The Point. As always, I'm your host, Eric Mitchell, and we thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, if you know someone that we should be interviewing on our show, or you'd like to be a guest on our show, feel free to email us at hello@tothepointtv.com. We'd love to have you as a guest on our show. Please go ahead and feel free to follow us on Twitter at To The Point TV. We'd love to see you on Twitter. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram. We're huge fans of Instagram here at To The Point. So give us a follow at To The Point and a like and a share so you can see the guests that are coming up on IG. And that is at To The Point TV. It's not .com. It's just at To The Point TV. So confusing with all these names taken. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, you know what we're going to get ready to go. But before you do that, if you're a fan of Facebook and you spend a lot of time on there, go give our Facebook page a like and a follow and share it with your friends. And keep in mind, if you can't get to your YouTube, you can always watch us live at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern weekdays. We appreciate to see you there. And as always, my favorite peeps, you're here on the YouTube, and we love you here on YouTube. So make sure that you drop in and you can see every episode and never miss an episode, right? Because if you smash that subscribe button, give it a like, and flick that bell, you flick that bell, you get notified before everyone else when we drop the latest episode or subscription. And as a reminder, all of our segments and shows go live weekdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. So you will be the first to catch them, and you don't want to miss them. Go check out our library. They are broken down by hashtags, so you will never miss an episode. On behalf of our entire team here at To The Point, we want to thank you for tuning in, because if it wasn't for viewers like you, we wouldn't have a show. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be strong, be smart, and God bless America.
Let's get to the point.